Hi, and thanks for joining us again. So in the last video, we were discussing some concepts of why we faint, and we used terms like blood pressure, stroke volume, heart rate, cardiac output, and we thought we'd spend just a couple of minutes describing exactly what these are. So Trish, can you tell us, what is the blood pressure and why do we need it?
Okay, so I'm going to keep this very simple because I think to many people when we first meet them, blood pressure is just something that you get taken at the doctor's and it's just figures and it might be too high or too low, or it's usually discussed in terms of a bad thing, as in you have too high a blood pressure and that's problematic. But I want you to think of it something just differently. Just thinking of it in terms of that system that we need, as Boone's explained, when we stand up and the blood wants to pool just because of gravity. It's that system that we have, that we've developed, to ensure that the blood keeps not doing that, but returning to the brain, into the heart. Okay, so it's just a way that it's a way of just circulating the blood around to the brain and to the heart. So there are different sort of elements of this, and we talk about stroke volume, which is when the heart beats, how much leaves it to go to the brain and to elsewhere. We talk about cardiac output, which is again, in total, every minute or every, how much blood moves around. And we talk about vessels and we talk about heartbeats and having to drink. It all gets a little bit confusing. So I'll just simplify it by thinking of it as, central heating system that you have at home. So you've got your boiler at home. And of that, so for our central heating system to work, for us to have hot water when we want it and to have our heating to work, we need a pump, okay, which is part of our boiler system. And the heart is the pump that literally every time it beats, it sends blood around or sends water around. But that pump isn't any good unless there's a water supply fixing it. So if our water pressure is low, because we've had our water turned off or there's a leak somewhere, then it doesn't matter how good that pump is and how often it beats and how often it pumps, there's still not going to be much leaving, it's not going to circulate. So we're still going to have cold radiators and not much gurgling noise in our pipes. And that's why hydration is important. That's why how much we drink and how much fluid our body has to enable to enable the blood to move around the body is important. So if we're dehydrated, think of it as your water pressure is low. So it doesn't matter how hard or how fast the heart beats, there's still going to be, our pressure is going to be low. And the third element to this is our pipes and our pipe work. Okay, so if we have rusty pipes, or we have pipes that don't really do their job and enable the blood to move around, or we have strictures in some places of tightening, or our pipes are very, very wide. So it's like a hose pipe. If the hose pipe is very wide, then our pressure will be low. And that's where the vessels that carry the blood around our body, especially the ones in our gut and our legs, are quite important. So that's why Boone has talked about when we stand up on a hot day, our vessels dilate or widen, just like that hose pipe getting widened, and its blood is more likely to pool. And if it's cooler and colder, they tighten up, or when the adrenaline gets sent around, they tighten up, and that helps shoot the blood a little faster. And hydration is important there as well, because it helps if we're quite well filled and quite hydrated. It helps our blood vessels maintain their tone and maintain how they send the blood around. So it's not all about the heart, which it is, there's the heart, which is how many times our heart beats or how fast it beats. It's about how well filled we are. So in terms of how much water we drink and how much salt we have, that's why that's quite important for fainters particularly. And it's also in terms of how tight or relaxed our blood vessels are. And of course, it's all increasingly controlled, especially now we think of our boilers at home and how complicated it gets when the gas man perhaps comes and services and he gets the computer out. It's the computer or the brain that controls all that. So tells the heart to beat faster or slower. It tells us if there's a problem with our blood vessels being tight or being too relaxed. Or it tells us if our water pressure is low, and it sends a signal and tells us our water pressure is low. So that's a very simple way of thinking about your blood pressure. So your blood pressure isn't just one thing that's always fixed and always stay the same and is either too high or too low. It's just a mechanism of getting the blood around the body.
That's a great analogy, Trish. Thank you. So thinking of the water pressure system, we've got the heart itself, the pump, how often it beats, so how often it gets the blood around the body. We've got the water itself, so the water pressure, and then the pipes, and then the control center, which is the brain. So there's so much to the blood pressure, which is probably why it's such a finely regulated mechanism. Thanks, Trish.
You're welcome.